In 1917, the Halifax Explosion devastated Halifax and the surrounding area. Almost 2,000 people were killed. And the city of Boston was one of the first to respond, sending medical aid and supplies. And there's been a tight connection between Halifax, Nova Scotia, and Boston ever since. Pleased to be joined by Ryan Woods, Commissioner of Boston Parks and Recreation Department. Ryan, how did you get involved with the Tree for Boston?
Well, first, thank you very much for having me. It's been a nice 18-year ride I've had with the Tree for Boston, being involved with this. When I first started with the Parks Department, overseeing programming at the time, this was our big signature event. And every year we continue to grow and add new things. So it's something we look forward to every single year.
And as mentioned, the Halifax Explosion, a massive event in this province's and this country's history. It was taught to me in grade school, as it is with many children. And the Tree for Boston is that thank you that the city of Halifax, HRM, the Halifax Regional Municipality, and the province of Nova Scotia sends to Boston as a continued thank you for those efforts that Boston made coming to the aid of Halifax. It was snowy, buildings were devastated, people were suffering, and Boston stepped up. And the Tree for Boston recognizes that. When did the first Tree for Boston happen?
The first Tree for Boston, interesting enough, happened in 1918 as a thank you after the explosion. And then so many years went by, and this tradition was brought back in 1971. So for the past 52 years, Boston has had the official Christmas tree for the city come from Nova Scotia.
So it arrived, as we record this, it arrived yesterday, which would have been November 21st, a Tuesday morning in Boston. What's it like when that tree rolls into the city and arrives in Boston Common? I know you were there with some special guests, but just kind of walk me through the experience, what it's like when the tree arrives and then what happens.
So as we see the tree coming in, it comes in with a police escort, and it kind of passes the site where we're at, and we're able to watch it. And you have school children and local residents out there with Nova Scotia flags waving a welcome as it pulls into America's first park on Boston Common. Um, a lot of fanfare, folks, singing carols yesterday, hot chocolate, candy canes. We had a guest visit by Santa, and just hearing people that have a connection, or I grew up in Nova Scotia, or my aunt lives in Nova Scotia, just showing that there is a close tie and bond still with the city of Boston and Nova Scotia.
So here in Nova Scotia, we're very well aware of the Tree for Boston and why we do it and why it gets sent. It is a big deal, a lot of fanfare around it, and people really embrace it. They want to follow the trip down. But I've always wondered what the reaction is in Boston. What does it mean to Boston? Is it much the same? Is there a connection with the tree? If folks are taking their little ones to see the tree at Boston Common after the tree lighting on November 30th, they may know it's from Nova Scotia, but do they know the whole background? What's your sense of what it means to Boston and how much people know about it?
We certainly try our best to make sure we tell that story leading up to the tree lighting and leave a marker on site that explains the explosion in 1917 and how Boston, came with aid and doctors and medical supplies. We also have teamed up with schools in Nova Scotia and done pen pal and nowadays Zoom sessions with local schools and Boston Public Schools to make sure we tell that story in schools. And really, not just about how Boston came to the aid, but how about the whole holiday season, how the importance of helping others, giving to those in their times of needs, and being there for others. That is, a message that we want to, continue. And not that it's just, here is a Christmas tree for Christmas. The significance goes a lot deeper than that. So we try to make sure we tell that in the schools. We make sure we lead up in the Boston Globe with articles about it leading up to the tree lighting. And then as well on our WCVB local ABC affiliate, Channel 5, telling that story. And I think it's something that gets passed down from generation to generation, and people flock to the Common all through the month of December. They get to skate on the Frog Pond, and there's always a stop at the Tree for Boston that's given from the great folks from Nova Scotia.
We hear about it, when it gets close to the time when the tree is going to get cut down. Betty Gorley and her family in Stewiacke donated this year tree, a 40-year-old, 45-foot spruce, and we follow the trek down. But there's got to be a lot of logistics and a lot of things that go on leading up to that time. You said you've had close to a 2-decade run in your role and being involved with this. What are the logistics like, and when does kind of the mechanics start of, okay, it's time for that Nova Scotia Christmas tree to come again? Maybe just kind of a shortened version of what that's like leading up to, whether it's weeks or months in advance.
Sure. As ridiculous as it may sound, our first meeting that we have in the year is in January to talk about what happened at the past or previous year's tree lighting and any feedback or what improvements while it's fresh in our mind. And then we pick it back up around August. And we have an intense 4 months of meetings with the TV station and what new things can be brought in. How do we make sure this is accessible? Can bring in ASL interpreters, making sure there's cart services for people that want to, come in person to watch the show happen. But logistics of sound, bidding out the work as we are a local government, we can't just hire companies. We have to put things out to bid. So putting RFPs out and having audio companies bid on it, getting stage companies in, making sure the plethora of permits are all in place, whether it's fire department permits because you have pyrotechnics happening and propane heaters to heat certain tent areas where acts are, and getting RVs for the talent backstage. And then literally just getting in the logistics of designing the graphics for this year, acquiring the talent. We've got people that reach out year long asking to be part of the show. And it's a 2-hour show on site, but it's only 1 hour televised. So, we only have 6 or 7 spots in that 1 hour televised portion that everyone's vying for to get on there. So this year, we're very excited to have Coig join us and Owen O Sound Lee from the province of Nova Scotia as two of the acts in this year's show. But there's quite a lot of work, as I mentioned, 4 months going into this. And I'd say the cost is upwards of $400,000 to put on the production, light the trees around Boston Common, and make sure this is a world-class event.
I'm not sure if there's a connection between your last name Woods and the fact that you've been so involved with the Tree for Boston. We'll leave that for another day, perhaps. But Ryan, being so involved with this as you are, what's it like? What are the discussions like, amongst your colleagues? Do you have kind of an affinity for Nova Scotia? What's that kind of relationship like?
We certainly do. As I mentioned, everyone gets excited here. I was in my tartan scarf yesterday as the tree arrived, and I've been fortunate to come to Halifax 4 times, I think it is, to witness the tree cutting event and be there. As I think it's important, since a delegation comes from Nova Scotia every year to see the tree get lit. It's important too that we get to Halifax and we get over. And there's many ways. I got to go over in November, so it wasn't the warmest of those years when I went over. But it's the excitement of trying to get there during the warm weather and do experience Nova Scotia. And there's lots of ways, whether it's a 13-hour drive for us, or getting to Maine and taking the shuttle over, the boat over to Nova Scotia. It's something that we all talk about, and there's a great affinity, at least in our office and at Channel 5. Everyone gets excited around this time of year, and trying to spread the good news of how great Nova Scotia is. And I think when Premier Houston comes down, he's able to tout all that Nova Scotia has to offer, and they do many different activities or trade shows and experiences while they're in town that weekend to really show what Nova Scotia has to offer to the people of Boston.
And we've talked about, what it means to Nova Scotia, to Boston, and that area, and right in around that area in New England, really. And all the logistics that we've talked about, right? You said discussions start way back in January. So it is almost kind of like a year-long thing. But when you get to that moment in the early evening of November 30th, and there's the countdown and the fanfare, and the tree is finally illuminated, you've been through it. What's that moment like?
It is a breath of relief, at least for me, because I'm usually backstage on a headset. Once I see the tree get lit and the pyrotechnics go off, I think my blood pressure probably drops a good 20. But it really is the anticipation, building it and seeing the crowd, people smiling, waving their Nova Scotia flags, sitting in the crowd, just the excitement that the holiday season brings. I think it brings joy to everybody. And having Santa come out on the stage and Rudolph come out on the stage, and the great performances that we have, it's always a positive experience. It really kicks off the holiday season for us. So, like I said, for myself, it's more of a breath of relief when it's over, and that's when I get to do my high fives and be excited about it. But really, just being there and seeing the joy on the families and the children's faces certainly kicks off the holiday season for us.
Well, Ryan, we certainly appreciate your time. It was so great to get to chat with you and to get a bit of the Boston perspective on this. Look forward to that live broadcast on November 30th. We'll be watching it here and checking out lots of coverage online as well. We appreciate your time and enjoy the festivities on November 30th when the tree for Boston is lit up.
Thank you very much for having me. We're very excited and we're looking forward to November 30th.
Ryan Woods, the Boston Parks and Rec Commissioner. Appreciate your time. Happy holidays, sir.
You as well. Take care.
Thank you.